Imagine you weren't born in a hospital. You weren't carried for 9 months in the warm darkness of your mother's body. You hatched from a test tube in a factory. You've never even heard the word mother. It sounds like a curse. Your only purpose is to be happy, to consume soma, and never to be left alone with your own thoughts. And now the main question. If you are happy, do you have the right to be free? And what is more terrifying, to suffer but remain human, or to smile while staying just a cog in the machine? Hello, this is the Omega Room channel, and today we are diving into a world that Aldous Huxley wrote almost 100 years ago, but one we are already living in today. Brave New World is not just science fiction, it's a war. And if you're in high school, preparing for exams, or just want to understand how modern consumer culture works, stick with us. And yes, don't forget to subscribe to Omega Room, because we break down books in a way they never do in ordinary literature classes. London, 632 years of the era of stability. The action takes place in London, but not the one we know. On the calendar, it's the year 632 of the era of stability. To convert that date into our familiar time, we add 600 years to the birth of Henry Ford. Yes, the man who invented the assembly line. Here, Ford has become a messiah. Instead of the cross, there's the letter touch from his car model. Instead of, oh Lord, it's oh Ford. Society is no longer divided into rich and poor. It's divided into castes: alphas, betas, gammas, deltas, and epsilons. But here's what matters. These castes aren't inherited, and they aren't chosen. They are grown. Even at the embryonic stage, alphas are smart, beautiful, tall. They rule. Epsilons are squat, dull, but physically hard. Their destiny is to do the dirty work, and they love their work, because they were programmed to love it while still in the test tube. Huxley shows us the process of conditioning. Newborn epsilons, still in their glass bottles, are taught to avoid flowers and love books. How? With electric shocks. Later, when they grow up, nature itself disgusts them. They will never want to go into the forest, so they'll never waste time. They want to work in factories. Now stop for a second. Imagine your desires aren't your own. You think you love pizza, social media, or some music because it's your choice. But what if your tastes were implanted in you during childhood by advertising algorithms and the school system? Huxley isn't describing a magical future. He's describing a mechanism that is working on your psyche right now. The main character of this London is Bernard Marx. He's an alpha, but defective. Bernard and Lenina, strangers among their own. Bernard is an alpha plus. But in childhood, alcohol was accidentally added to the test tube containing his embryo. So he's shorter, shy, and often sad. In a world where everyone is supposed to be happy 24/7, his sadness is a crime. He suffers because he can be alone. He wants real feelings, not just the sexual games that here are called. Everyone belongs to everyone. And then there's Lenina, a young beta woman. She works at the factory that produces soma. Soma is the perfect drug. No hangover, no withdrawal. You just take a gram, and any stress vanishes, replaced by euphoria. Lenina begins to doubt. She feels she wants to belong to just one person. That's forbidden. That's obscene. She's considered abnormal. Bernard and Lenina are the perfect pair of outcasts. And to prove his worth, Bernard decides to do something insane. He takes Lenina to the Savage Place, a reservation for Native Americans in New Mexico. There, behind the fence, live people who were born naturally. They suffer, they age, they believe in gods, and they raise children. For civilized London, this is barbarism. But for Lenina and Bernard, it's a shock. Because for the first time, they see real life. Imagine you've spent your whole life looking at the world through rose-colored glasses the state gave you. And then you take them off. And you see blood, pain, old age, but also love and free will. Huxley forces us to choose. Are we ready for real life if it hurts? Right here in the novel, a character appears who changes everything. His name is John, or the Savage. The Savage, a man from the world of suffering. John was born on the reservation. His mother is Lenina. Yes, the same Lenina who became pregnant during Bernard's previous visit to the reservation many years ago. But she didn't raise him. She committed a sin impossible in London. She became a mother. The Indians despised her for her promiscuity. And John grew up on 2 books. An old Bible and a collection of Shakespeare's plays. This is an extremely important moment for understanding the entire novel. John knows only 2 things about life: Christian morality, endurance, suffering, sin, and Shakespearean passions, love unto death, jealousy, betrayal. He knows no middle ground. He is a romantic who believes that beauty must be tragic. When Bernard brings John and his mother to London, the main conflict of the novel begins. The savage becomes a star. Everyone wants to look at him like an exotic animal. They offer him soma to stop his torment over the past. They offer him women because everyone belongs to everyone. But John refuses. He says, I want the right to be unhappy. In a world where happiness is a duty, that is madness. Now, the most horrifying scene you can imagine. Imagine your mother is dying. You are crying. And everyone around you holds out a soma tablet saying, why suffer? Take this and you'll feel better. What would you choose? Living grief or artificial joy? John chooses grief. He tries to escape society. He leaves London, settles in an abandoned lighthouse, and begins to whip himself to purify himself from the sinful desires this world imposes on him. The conversation with Mustafa Mond, the book's main philosophy. The climax of the novel is not a sword fight or a shootout. It is a conversation. The savage John goes to Mustafa Mond, one of the 10 rulers of the world. Mond is the controller of Western Europe. He has read Shakespeare. He knows what science, religion, and art are. He chose this path consciously. John demands the right to suffer, to grow old, to experience unhappy love. He shouts, I want God. I want poetry. I want danger and freedom. And here is what Mustafa Mond answers. Mond says, you want the right to be unhappy. But we have given people stability. We have abolished wars, hunger, old age. We have abolished love. Because love leads to jealousy, and jealousy leads to murder. We have abolished art, because art is born from pain. To write tragedies, you have to suffer. And we don't want anyone to suffer. And then comes the most terrifying sentence in the novel. Mond says, we are not as cruel as your world. We're just different. And he offers John a choice. John can stay in London, but then he must obey the rules, or he can go to an isolated island where other rebels live. Physicists, psychologists, thinkers who didn't fit into the system. John refuses. He wants solitude. He wants to suffer alone to prove he is human. Now I'll say something that will change how you think about grades in school. Huxley wrote this novel in 1932. He didn't know about the internet, but he knew for sure that the society of the future wouldn't keep people in fear. It would keep them in pleasure. So here's a question you might never be asked on an exam. What's the difference between our world and the world of Brave New World? We too have antidepressants, social networks that drown out thoughts, and a culture where sexual life is separated from feelings. We are already living inside this novel. We just call soma procrastination or binge watching. The final, why you cannot escape from happiness. John settles in the lighthouse. He tries to live by the laws of Shakespeare and the Bible. He prays, he whips himself. He refuses comfort. But the world doesn't leave him alone. Journalists arrive to watch his self-flagellation. People from the city gather in crowds to see the mad savage torment himself. They find it entertaining, like a new sport. It seems amusing to them. And then one day, Lenina arrives, the same girl who once wanted true love. Now she just wants to have sex because that's what she was taught. John loves her, but he sees that she is a product of this system. He cannot be with her because that would be carnal sin. He cannot be without her because he is human. The crowd presses in. They demand a show. And then comes the moment when the system wins. Under the pressure of the crowd that wants entertainment, John gives in. He takes soma. He thrashes about in hysterics while the cameras roll. And the next morning, he is found dead. He hanged himself. He chose death because he could not choose between animal happiness and an impossible ideal. Why did Huxley make such an ending? Why didn't the savage triumph? Because Brave New World is not a story about a hero who saves the day. It's a story about how rebellion for its own sake is pointless. Huxley shows, if you grew up on Shakespeare's tragedies, you won't be able to live in a world that has no room for tragedy. You will simply break. And this is the most important lesson for a high school student preparing for adulthood. To change the system, hating it is not enough. You need something stronger than Shakespeare. You need a community of like-minded people. Why this matters for your education. When you write an essay or take an exam, remember the key difference. Brave New World is often confused with George Orwell's 1984. But they are two different dystopias. Orwell feared we would be destroyed by pain and fear. Huxley feared we would be destroyed by pleasure. In Orwell's world, reading books is forbidden. In Huxley's world, books exist, but no one wants to read them because everyone is too happy. For the school curriculum, this matters for several reasons. First, the conflict between the individual and the system. You will see how Bernard and John try to preserve their self when society demands that everyone be alike. Second, the problem of technology. Huxley predicted genetic engineering, psychotropic drugs, and reproductive technologies. But the main point is that he showed how technology can destroy a person not directly, but through their own desires. Third, the manipulation of consciousness. The conditioning methods in the book are a hyperbolized model of modern advertising and education. Once you understand how it works, it becomes much harder to manipulate you. Imagine that Huxley wrote this novel in 1932. Television didn't even exist yet, but he had already described feelies, movies with tactile effects, which are our VR headsets. He described soma, our antidepressants, and the entertainment industry. He described a culture where sex is a sport rather than a bond. That is us today. This book is a mirror, and if you felt uncomfortable while listening, then the mirror did its job. If you want to dive into other books that break your mind, subscribe to Omega Room. Here we don't just retell plots. We show how they work in your life. Hit the bell so you don't miss our breakdowns of 1984, Fahrenheit 451, and other books worth reading before you become a perfect epsilon. And I'll say goodbye. Remember, even if the whole world around you is happy, you have the right to complicated feelings. That's what makes you human. See you at Omega Room.